Hi, Misha here, and this is going to be a bit of a different video maybe, and a first experience for Fox and myself. This came in the store. By the time you see this video, this gun is not only sold, it's long since shipped out. But why not talk about it, since we've been doing a lot of AK stuff. An AR-derived gun. The LWRC M6-IC individual carbine. Enhanced. And I'm sure there's some other subtitles to her, but you get the idea. This is the 5.56 version. Adjustable gas. And this is the 16.1 inch barrel version, so the flash hider is removable. But yeah, well, I've known of these and even sold a few different LWRCs. Sold one of their pistols last year. Had a couple of their DI guns. Never actually shot one. And recently, in the last few years, we've done a number of Piston AR15 types, from the Taiwanese T91, the HK MRs, and of course the LMT Estonian R20, to name some. So let's put the first rounds through this. Fox felt like putting the first rounds to the LWRC, and we're gonna shoot some old expired coffee cans. Quite literally.
Going hot. Feed in the next. I'll adjust here in a second. First round. All right. Not feeding. So.
Ruh-roh. Okay. This was a used gun that came in, and the gas system, I was not sure which was suppressor and which was standard. In most all my other guns, this would be the non-standard setting, horizontal. But let's put it this way.
Feeding, so I am going to turn this gas to...
Yeah, let's try it. Maybe... Because I actually asked Chris which way to put that. It just rotates. You just press. You just twist it.
I'm going to put it in the middle. Go from
Well,
there.
no, there's no middle. It's just two. There's just two positions.
Oh, all the way down?
Yeah, it just rotates to horizontal.
Well, let me turn it to the middle. Let's just try it there, because it's now pointing towards the 3 o'clock and 8
That's
o'clock.
what I mean. Yeah, horizontal.
Yeah.
Yep.
Well, she's definitely running now, folks.
I think just like you and I had that misunderstanding of an up, down, side, side, I think Chris might have too when I asked him which position was suppressor.
Right.
Because that seemed right.
Definitely punchy.
Definitely punchy, huh?
Yeah,
Let me get behind it and see then.
Yeah, extremely punchy.
Yeah, so once we put it here, that ran well for Fox. And you kind of understood the confusion. I did ask Chris Bartacci, and he told me it was vertical, but I think when they say vertical, they're thinking of it pointing, whereas to me, vertical is this way. Communications, everything's subjective, especially when I can't see photos. So that was on me. But just to make sure, let's put it back just for a split second. No harm, no foul. I'm gonna try it with that brake gas in the vertical again. Yeah, it's definitely not a doing.
Nope.
Now I put it back in the horizontal. You know, I don't think it's that punchy. I think that you're used to your MR556, which weighs about twice as much.
True, true.
So I think it's...
Yeah, even my 308, that weighs twice as much. And I actually brought it because I think you're right.
I think it's just a weight thing at that point. But yeah, with the gas on the standard setting, it's fine. Also keep in mind, it was cold then. It's 22 degrees out today. So cold and cold. We've had actually quite a winter here.
I don't think it needs anything. It just needs shot.
Well, yeah, everything needs
so,
shot.
so great that it comes with an adjustable gas plug.
Yeah, that's just one of those modern features that we kind of need.
Yeah, it really is. You know, I think the days of having a $2,000 AR that doesn't have that are kind of over when you start getting into the better brands.
And those were our initial first impressions. Fox thought it was a little recoily, but upon second reflection, everything's kind of subjective. And I agree, it had a little more oomph to it than some. But yeah, this is a very svelte gun, partially thanks to this very unique twisty, fluty barrel, which actually extends under the handguard. Also, we've been shooting the Phoenix ammo, and shooting at other guns like the AKs, I think, even though it is reloaded stuff, it's warm. It's not overly powered, but it thumps. It actually reminds me a lot in power to military spec stuff, Lake City or the like. So that's part of it too. So, guess it goes to show you guys that even if you're familiar with a lot of other guns, the first time you put mitts on one, it can be a comedy of errors, and you can laugh at me because you know, it's always a learning experience. But that's what I really like about this stuff. I love learning about new things, trying new things out. And if you like that too, at the least, please do like, share, and subscribe to the video. Definitely comment if you own an LWRC. And if you'd like to really help support us, get more ammo, go to the range, check out the link to Patreon. And with that said, let's discuss these feature-wise, pros and cons, and do a little bit of light comparing. Learning about LWRC and the M6 has been a lot of fun. And it does mirror a lot of the features that were popular a decade and a half ago. And Chris Bartocci does speak very highly of them. Even today, it's a relatively small company, and it's not that old. I think only around 25 years, give or take. And they started off with the idea of a gas piston system. Okay, that's old hat today, but around 2000, 2004, right as the war on terror is hitting its peak, direct impingement is kind of on the back foot. This is really before the Colt M4A1 and all those issues were worked out. The M4 is being pressed into a role it really was never intended for, so not surprisingly, problems. Well, LWRC and others said, well, you know, pistons. The AR15 was there. A lot of countries are doing it. So they started there. And in 2006, they introduced the M6. And it did start off as an M4, essentially, with a short stroke gas piston system, loosely inspired by the Armorlight AR18 because, well, everything is. It's the velvet underground of the gun world. And at that time, it was actually pretty parts compatible with the original M4. LWRC said 80%. Over the years, as improvements have been made, that number has dropped, but yeah, back then. So basically, it was an M4 with the piston system. And things would progress from there. By the way, according to Wikipedia, the original M6 was replaced by the M6 SL. Stretch long is kind of the basic entry-level model. And then the M6A1 was kind of mirroring the M4A1, where it had more of a rail system, this monolithic design, and was really designed more for accessories. Interestingly, these early versions still had a fixed front sight, like the Colt. It would be the M6A2 that would really push things, though, and become the flagship model. Still short stroke gas piston. We would have a full-length rail with folding sights, if ever included, and this handguard system with up to 9-inch rail sections that can be bolted on sides. This one has one on the bottom. kind of their alternative to key mod or M-lock, but there and again, you know, hey. And they would start doing other things. You'll see a few different stocks and grips. Magpul was real common. The magazines they shipped with were steel. Originally, you get 3. I think newer versions, you only got 1. So it goes. So around 2010, they introduced this version, or rather, you know, what this is based on. The M6-A2 IC, individual carbine. Not surprisingly, developed for the Army's individual carbine trials. This was kind of the reaching out to the industry to see if there was anything better than the M4, M4A1. Spoiler, by 2012 the answer was no. At least not worth spending the money on. So like a lot of these Army projects, look at what happened to SCAR and all that, and probably will happen to the XM7 if you ask me. You know, there's a bunch of flash and everything, but LWRC would submit the M6-IC, but it wasn't even the down select. It didn't even make it to the end of the trials. It was out early on. Nevertheless, the gun reflects its military pedigree. Now this is the IC Enhanced, which has a few improvements over that version that came out over a decade ago. But, you know, we'll look at it, check out those features, and honestly, that's what kind of makes this interesting to me. Should go without saying this feeds from Stanag magazines, but that I better mention it. Like I said, this is a monolithic receiver, and the original ICs did not have a fully ambidextrous lower, but the enhanced do. We have mag catch, bolt release, safety, all ambidextrous. Sights varied over the years. These are pretty cool. Bolt on there, adjustable, very high quality. I believe these are the LWRC skirmish sights. And ventilated. And in fact, whereas a lot of piston guns, HK416 definitely comes to mind, don't seem to be that concerned about weight, LWRC was. And that's not a bad thing, because the original AR15 was meant to be lightweight. So we have a fluted, skeletonized handguard. And then we have this very unique barrel. Now the ones submitted for trials either had this spiral cut fluting, while other examples had more traditional fluting. Like I said earlier, this is a 16.1 barrel. Those were submitted for trials. They also had a 14.7, which you can buy as a semi-automatic. If you do, you get a permanently affixed flash hider. More or less A2 style. Standard lug. Notice it has the ring for the underbarrel launcher on the gas block. And the 2 position, as we already pointed out. Not all of the earlier versions did, but enhanced, this became a standard feature as suppressors became more and more popular. Anyway, this is considered a heavy profile barrel, but thanks to the spiral, LWRC says it saves up to 20% weight. I guess they mean without it. And as I said at the beginning of the video, and Fox agreed, you notice it. This is a light gun, considering everything. And I like how there's not a big old barrel nut here. It's real smooth.
Yeah, the handrail system is unique to them. I've never even seen a clone of that yet.
Yeah, that's...
Which is cool. And the grip's cool, too. I think the LWRC.
Yeah, I thought it was fine. Flipping it over, standard port door, standard deflector. Yes, it has a forward assist. Like I said, the enhanced has an ambi lower. 6th position slim stock, standard 2. Has this block back here with ambi QD sling pockets as well.
Curious what size buffer weight they have in there, or tube, and but
Yeah. Yep, looks like we got an H2 in there.
About as normal as it can get.
Yes, indeed. The charging handle is also ambidextrous. And we have a nickel boron coated bolt group, which, according to the company, prevents corrosion, makes cleaning easier, decreases wear, and maybe most interestingly, is basically self-lubricating, or at least a lubricious material. I do actually like that. Always been a sucker for kind of finished carriers like that ever since the original Colt days, when they did the chrome ones. Now this barrel is cold hammer forged, and it's made in-house by LWRC, but it's not chrome lined. It's well, I think it's basically chrome moly, but they call it Nicor or something. Yeah, everyone's got their name. 1-7 twist, though. Now, some will say that doesn't matter. Some might say it's better. Others are die-hard chrome or nothing guys. I don't care, frankly. It's a good quality barrel, and that's very obvious. And it's a very well-balanced gun. The bayonet lug is standard for an M7, M9 type. And so let's try a test fitting one. I've actually not tried. Just grabbed M9 because it was closest. And this is a pretty forgiving bayonet as far as dimensions. See how it does. There you go. Because this is a slightly longer barrel, it is riding at the edge. It's not too loose. Better than if you try to put it on like a Colt 6920. But the hider does stick out a bit. So going back to history, even though this did not make it in the U.S. Army trials, in fact, really nothing did, it did put the company on the map. Several police departments took a look and bought them in different numbers. The DEA actually allowed private purchase, although never issued them. But probably the biggest deal for this gun was in 2012 when the British Special Forces adopted it as a basically personal defense weapon. That would be the M6-A2 UCIW, which is a tiny little gun. It was the same short stroke system, but it had a tiny 7-inch barrel, 22 inches overall, and weighed under 6.5 pounds. Yeah, it was basically replacing the MP5K and Special Forces and, vehicle crews, defenses, things like that. Now, they didn't buy a ton of them. And this was around the same time, actually, LMT supplied the sharpshooter as the L29A1 to the British as well, a couple of years just before that. The Jordanian government also purchased some, and interestingly, those were in 6.8, not 5.6. So by this point, they're offering both. And there would be a version called the SPR, which had a longer 18-inch barrel, which is kind of meant more as a DMR, and that would actually lead to the extended handguard, 12 inches with a low-profile gas block. A little extra real estate. Some need. Of course, that did come at the cost of a little extra weight. And that would immediately lead to the next generation, the M6A3. The A3 was essentially a dedicated marksman gun with a few more bells and whistles. And that would directly lead to the M6A4, which was actually submitted as a SAW, squad automatic weapon, for the U.S. Marine trials. But it would ultimately lose out to the HK416 as the M27 Infantry Automatic Rifle, IAR. It looked pretty much like the A3, but it was able to fire in the closed bolt position for single shot and then switch over to open bolt for better cooling and automatic fire. They did this to try to keep the weight reasonable, whereas a lot of other companies, like say Colt, just added giant heat sinks to their guns. And then that would lead to the M6 M6-A5, one of the more modern versions. This version here, the M6-IC, and then later the enhanced, has actually been out for, over a decade, at least the original version. So I'm not new to the market with this, but like I said, it came in used, and took the opportunity. Again, if it's got a bayonet lug on it, it's gonna kind of attract me. In fact, I even thought briefly about maybe I should sell something and hang on to this. And of course, there's only one direct comparison, at least in my collection. There are several rifles and makers that it would be a good comparison for the M6-IC, but since we're talking about my collection, it shouldn't surprise you that we will be having my LMT Mars L. Specifically, this is the R20 Estonian military reference rifle. And those who follow the channel know I really like this gun and have had very good luck out of it. And feature-wise, these are amazingly similar guns. The LMT. Open. And yes, I do prefer the LMT. However, there are a couple of areas where I think the LWRC is as good or better. Nothing's perfect, but overall, yeah. But just in case you don't know, of course, this is 5.56. This has a relatively heavy profile barrel. This version has 14.3 with a pin and welded suppressor-ready flash hider. It is also a short-stroke gas piston system. It has a single-position gas regulator, and if you ever wondered why, it's because they're worried about idiots like myself that mix up and don't. Now, they do offer a two-position version. In fact, Estonia did order some known as the R20S with a slightly shorter 12.2-inch barrel, meant more for suppressor use, so you had standard and suppressor. But for the standard infantry version, this one, it's just one. Of course, you want to change it out. That's easy enough to do. We have just standard NATO bayonet lug. The M203 type launcher that LMT supplies with this actually mounts different, so you don't have the ring. It's an underbarrel system. This is monolithic. It has M-lock. I do like that it actually has a total of 7 sides, plus the top, which is a fixed rail. It does have LMT's quick change barrel. We have 2 bolts and it basically 360 squeezes the barrel. It too ships with backup sights. This one's under this. It too has an ambidextrous lower receiver. And comes with a Magpul stock, although it does have LMT's pistol grip, which really reminds me of the original Wilson Combat grip. Ambidextrous. And of course, port door, heavy buffer, all that good stuff. I will say, while both have a 1-in-7 twist barrel, this is chrome lined, which some people might appreciate, but it's also heavier. In fact, this whole gun feels noticeably heavier, although part of it is that I do have an optic and magnifier on here in my sling, although I've kept it as trim as possible. So if I threw on the same here, that would add some weight. But I do think the LWRC is a lighter gun. So that is one thing in its favor. I think the fluting is a neat exercise in machining, although one might argue it's a little overboard for a military gun. I will give it props that the sights lock in place. You have to push the button to fold them down. Whereas on the LMT, they just kind of float there. I mean, they're backup sights, so it's nice that they're there. Bolt throw. Both have 6 position stocks. I'm going to say the LMT is noticeably smoother, but keep in mind, this gun, while I did get it in the store used, I don't think it had a high round count at all, and we only put about 60 or 70 rounds that day just to try her out. I hope you can hear that. Probably you can. While it's absolutely not a rough throw, it's more kind of standard Colt M4 feel. This one to me is smoother. And again, it's pretty well broken in with well over 1,000 rounds to it. Take of that as you will. Upper to lower fit is pretty dang tight. No vertical, very little horizontal play. And again, with the LWRC, while the play isn't bad, I think it's just a little bit more, and there is an ACU wedge in here. I didn't put it in. I don't actually know if it came from the factory with it, so if we were to take that out. So I would say there's a little bit more play with this one. By the way, that metal is very cold on my hands. One day I'll get smart and wear gloves when I do these outside in the cold, but this is not a video about me doing things the smart way. So, yeah. What about the controls? Alright, starting off with the bolt latch. The latch itself, I don't really notice a difference, if I'm being frank. Yeah, it's very similar. You might have a small ergonomic preference. I will say this one has the side-by-side pockets. It sticks out here. I do prefer the style on the LMT where it's just one pocket in the back, but again, that's very personal preference. I do also prefer the safety selector on the LMT because it's the European style where you can put it on safe even if the hammer is not cocked. I like that feature. It's not a must, but I like it. I also prefer the right side bolt catch on the LMT. I like the shape better. This one is fine, absolutely fine, easy to use, but it's very standard, kind of sharp here. Gets the pad of my finger if I try to manually hold it. And sorry about the dog, not mine, neighbor dog. This one is just a much smoother thing to use. But conversely, the mag catch. Now on this side, it's your standard AR. Same here. But on the lefty side, shows you, this one is small and a little hard to locate, especially when your hands are chilly. And to be honest, I did not even realize that until today, because I don't think I even tried the left side bolt catch on the LMT until thinking about this video. So yeah, if you're a lefty, I would say the mag catch is better on the LWRC, but I still like the bolt catch on the LMT more. But that's kind of small potatoes. I'd say the big one, trigger.
What'd you think of that trigger?
I thought it was good. It wasn't...
It wasn't Geisley, but it was still good.
It's better than mil-spec by far.
Correct.
As we already talked about the LWRC, perfectly good military level trigger. LMT. It's a more noticeable two-stage with a longer initial pull. but a nicer brake. So I like, in some ways, the short pull of the LWRC. But there's something extremely satisfying about the brake on the LMT. And in fact, I'll go further and say the trigger on the LMT itself, like the physical shape of the trigger, it just feels smoother, nicer, more precisely machined. So while it is very subjective, I think I prefer this trigger, but I wouldn't blame you if you disagreed. In fact, how many folks even keep the factory triggers in? This day and time, a lot of folks swap them out as much as possible. Quick side-by-side. Even though the LWRC has a nearly 2-inch longer barrel, it is noticeably lighter for the reasons discussed. And the handguard, this monolithic handguard, and the barrel's nut system here is definitely chunkier than this. This one definitely seems to slightly lean towards being lightweight, whereas this one seems to lean more towards being robust. I'm not saying the LWRC is a lightweight and, you know, easily broken or fragile. I'm just saying it feels like LMT preferred that. But of course, the HK, especially the MR556 itself, trumps both. So there you have it. Both do feel really good in the hand. Then again, I also like Colt's M4A1, the 6920 SOCOM. So, maybe I'm just a sucker. But let me know what you think. Another thing I wanted to touch upon, disassembly for cleaning and maintenance. And again, YouTube's rules, so stick with that. I'm not going to do it on camera. You know, in the back, it comes apart like any AR. Now, the difference is the short stroke piston. This one comes out like, say, the Taiwanese T91. A lot of others. You just rotate this and your piston and spring come out. The front is essentially one unit or packet, as I think of it. The LWRC takes a different tack. There are actually 2 screws here and here, quite large. They're called thumb screws, but they do have screwdriver slots. And me kind of being more of a military field type guy, I definitely prefer the toolless design here, although again, that's probably pretty subjective. But since I'm telling stories on myself today about being an idiot, I'll tell you another one. After first shooting this, these worked a little loose. Not much, just a little bit. Maybe the previous owner had them apart, you know. And I was like, why is my upper handguard loose? Kind of worrying about it. Again, we were in a crunch time. That was the day we were doing the Q&A. Didn't think much about it. And then I realized real quick my mistake, and you just do this. There. And then there's that. You can see the fluting inside. So that is good that you have kind of full access to your piston. Pull your bolt carrier back, pull it out. There you go. And I don't know if these are fully captive or they come out. Guys who own one, let me know. My hands are so cold right now, I'm afraid I just drop them. But, yeah, I can understand why someone would like this. It's kind of reminds me of the G36 pattern. Goes back on. Now, I will say, because of the flutes in this, and I'm sure it's not really a worry, but I would wonder about crud getting in there. You know, ice, snow, mud. It's probably nothing. Of course, if you had anything mounted to that, it would lose 0 or have to be removed or whatever. Whereas, again, on this gun, this is all one monolithic piece, and the covers here cover that, and all you have to do is... and it comes out. I personally just like this system more and find it more intuitive, I guess would be the right word. Then again, I'm the idiot. They couldn't even get the 2-position gas regulator right at the beginning of the video, so yeah, what the hell did I know? But yeah, of course the back. Now I will say, one thing I've always liked about the LMT are the small details on the lower, including having small dimples on the takedown pins for like a bullet tip to center to push them out if they're stuck. And I don't think the LWRC has those. And that's just it. This one feels like a very quality gun, but it feels more standard M4. So, yeah. I personally like it. I'm happy we were, get a chance to familiarize ourselves with it before it got sold out of the store. But, I don't want many modern ARs in the collection, and this one fits the bill for me very well. And I like that it is the Estonian contract. The Mars L first appeared around 2014, 2015. It had early success with a relatively small New Zealand contract as a direct impingement gun. And then in 2019, it got really good success, and 2020 was selected as the R20 for Estonia. It and its bigger brother in 7.62 NATO, and they've delivered about 10,000 now, with plans to deliver at least twice that many. Not a huge contract, but I believe nearly 50 nations issue an LMT in some numbers. Now, before we move on, I know some will say QC. All I can say is my gun here has been great, and the L129A1 reference rifle I had was great too. I can only speak to, my personal experiences. But, again,
God, I love this gun.
no surprise, he is sticking with his HK MR 556A1. A couple of years ago, we did a comparison of the LMT Estonian and the MR 556, and happily, we both like different guns for different reasons. And he loves his HK for its accuracy, of course, reliability, great trigger, and the weight doesn't matter to him. As we kind of saw at the beginning of the video, he cares more about recoil impulse, and that's fine. So, yeah, no real challenge there if you couldn't tell. But, it's always good to kind of try new things because you never know what you might like. Me, personally, they make a version called the M6-A2P, as in a pistol, which is based on the British gun, the UCIW, or maybe the slightly longer version, what was it, the PSW, the personal security weapon. Either way, the little pistol, LWRC, lightweight gun, might actually interest me more. Typically, I like rifles. But in this instance, because I feel like this gun's best feature is its svelte weight, and the fact that they've got a reliable shorty, that might actually interest me more this one time. But maybe one will come in the store used and we can feature it. And of course, when you get to the AR, the M4 market, there are so many options. There's POF, HK, there's all the offerings from Sig Sauer, FN has great ARs. The market's awash. It's so hard to stand out. So that's why we don't do a lot of AR stuff unless we can get hands-on. I don't like talking about guns, at least unless I can pull the trigger a couple of times. But as I said at the beginning, this one is bought and sold and about ready to ship out, so I thought we better do a quick little video. I'd love to hear if you own an LWRC, and if so, which version. I've actually heard really good things about their DI guns that they introduced a few years back. And if you own one of the little pistols, let me know how you like it, because that kind of intrigued me more than much anything else. And if you haven't tried the LMT, especially like the Estonian style, you know, don't let the online scare you. I'm not saying go out and buy one, but try one out. I freaking love it. And I didn't go into it really all that enthused, but you know, it just fits and feels in my hands right. Sometimes a gun just locks in, and there you go. And unfortunately, this one didn't quite get there. It's good. I really do appreciate a lot of its features. And I think it's really cool that a small company like LWRC, American owned, and most of their parts are made here. A lot of them are made in-house. I really appreciate that. And they've innovated. They were at the forefront of the short stroke piston, which really isn't that much of an innovation because Armorlight did it in this style back in the 60s, and even that was based on pre-World War II stuff. But, you know, everything builds upon everything else, right? And, of course, I really like the G36 too, but that's a story for another day. But appreciate you hanging out today. Just thought we'd do an AR video to kind of get away from all the AK talk. Let me know what you think. And feel free to drop suggestions in the comments for other variants to try out. And if we can get our hands on them, we will. With that said, please do like, share, and subscribe. And like to help support us, go over to Patreon. And, well, we'll be back hopefully very soon when it's above freezing with more guns next time.